On this week's Fanco Wrestling Show, the Zain versus Yianni saga continues, and I'm talking about why fans are so upset. Plus, you are not going to want to miss out on what an Olympic red shirt year is if you're a little bit confused about that. But if you do know about that, we're talking about Cornell's wrestling lineup, and Rutgers also got a new transfer. There's a lot to talk about, so let's stop stalling and start talking wrestling. What's up, wrestling fans? My name's Josiah, and yes, the stash is officially gone. But no worries, there's probably a chance that it's going to grow back upcoming season. On this week's Fanco Wrestling Show, we have so much news to talk about, and it's pretty much a Cornell heavy show if I have to say so myself. The first topic, though, that I want to dive into actually has to deal with Penn State and not Cornell. This news comes to us from the Fargo tournament that happened this past weekend when Bo Nickel had a special wrestle-off. So Bo Nickel, of course, Penn State wrestler, just graduated, three-time national champion. If you're not caught up on that, then you got to get caught up on some wrestling news. But Bo Nickel had a special wrestle-off with Jake Woodley, and he was allowed this special wrestle-off after he lost at Final X. So, if you're unaware, Bo Nickel and Jaden Cox wrestled off for the spot on Team USA. And what happened is, although I actually picked Bo to win, I was just out of my mind because I was forgetting about how great of an athlete Jaden Cox is. And Jaden Cox ended up beating Bo in the series 2-0. Now, Cox, of course, this past weekend wrestled extremely well at the Yasar Dogu, which we'll get to talking about the Yasar Dogu with Yianni and Zain and everything that happened there. But Cox outscored his opponents 42-0 at the Dogu. So, I mean, it's really no surprise that he's given Bo Nickel some competition. However, what happened with Bo? Well, he made Team USA U23. He wrestled off against Jake Woodley at Fargo. Woodley is a U23 World Team Trials champion, and you know what happened here? Why was Bo allowed this wrestle off? Well, actually, what happens if you're still eligible to wrestle at U23s, which Bo is, and there are a couple other guys who are, which I'll let you know who those are in just a minute. Then, if they're still eligible to wrestle, all that these guys have to do is pretty much tell Team USA that, yes, I want to wrestle the special Team USA wrestle-off to wrestle at U23s and represent Team USA. Now, Bo's very excited to represent Team USA, although it's probably not, he wanted to be representing USA on the senior level. And, I don't really blame him for being upset about not doing that, but I have to give him props for actually going out there and still wanting to improve and get better. So, okay, I can't make that world team spot at the senior level because Cox is there, but let me go ahead and try to make the junior team, and he did that for U23s. Now, who are a couple other guys that could have wrestled off? Well, originally, if Dayton Fix would not have won his wrestle off, which he did, he was eligible. Of course, he's on Team USA. Yianni was eligible, but he seems to be competing more on a senior level now. He's, he wrestled at the Dogu, even though he wasn't officially on Team USA. He wrestled there, so he's kind of competing more on that senior level than at the U23s. Also, Ryan Deacon was eligible, although he lost to James Green at Final X. He is still eligible, didn't actually ask for that special wrestle-off. And then the last person is Gable Stevenson, which, he's going through some stuff right now, and he's, probably doesn't have that wrestle-off on his mind. Now, Bo will compete in Budapest in Hungary on October 28th, 2019, so a little bit later this year, and I'm excited to see how he does. Next up in World Wrestling news, Zain and Yianni, the saga continues. So, Zain and Yianni wrestled at the Yasar Dogu this past weekend. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about the implications for Team USA and also why fans are so upset. And some people have a right to be, some people maybe not, but I'm going to get to that. So, what exactly happened at the Dogu? Well, first of all, Yianni won. Okay, Yianni won the Dogu. So, of course, he beat Zain in round one. and it just blew my mind. It blew my mind. And please let me know if it blew your mind too, that these two, after all they've been through, after all this crazy controversy, they get matched up with each other to wrestle in match 1 at the Dogu. Now, listen, it was a random draw, so it was probably done by a machine. The random draw is kind of done differently at certain tournaments. Sometimes it's the higher-ups randomly drawing, which, I wonder, like, really? You're going to have 2 guys on Team USA wrestling off in the first round? Very upsetting. However, the match was pretty great. It happened at 4 a.m. because those guys were over in a different country. Now, the score was close at the break. It was 2-1 at the break, and Yianni was up. And then kind of what happened in the second period is Zain kind of fake shot, kind of Yianni got around him, and then he was kind of hanging over top Zain, kind of flipped him, exposed him out of bounds, and we see how Zain get maybe a little bit injured. I don't know if it's his knee, his ankle, what it was. I think it was kind of holding his knee, but something on his leg was injured. And Yianni ended up winning that match. 9-5 was the final score. And Yianni looked good. Listen, this was the match 3 that everybody was hoping to see. And these guys showed up. They showed up, and, this is how it went down, okay? Now, Zain right now is still on Team USA. We'll get to the implications in just a minute and what this actually means. Does this actually mean anything? Now, why are the fans so upset too? We'll get to that in a minute. But first, I want to talk a little bit about how did Yianni do? Well, of course, I don't want to say cruise to the finals because his semifinals match was actually pretty darn close. His semifinals match, he was down 9-0 going into the second. Down 9-0, ended up coming back, winning on criteria, scoring 9 points, winning on criteria. Incredible match. In the finals, he ended up getting a forfeit. Guy didn't want to wrestle him, so he ended up winning the tournament, and that's kind of what happened. Johnny D, as we learn out, that his real name is actually John Diakomohalis and not Yianni, which is in Greek, I believe, is what it is. So what happened? Why are fans so upset, okay? And I think really a lot of this comes from, yes, the first match, but also the fact that Yianni won the tournament. Fans are so upset because of, they want to yell at the process. They want to yell at the refs. They want to yell at Cael Sanderson. No matter what was going to happen in this event, it was unfortunate because if Zain won, certain fans would have yelled and been like, see, I told you, you Cornell people are crazy, you Yianni fans are crazy, Zain deserves this spot, it's his, that's it, I told you so. Okay. But if Yianni won, which he did, and which is what's happening now, everybody's yelling, see, they should have got a third match, this should have happened, and Yianni deserves this spot over Zain. It doesn't matter what happened, he deserves this spot. So it was we were caught between a rock and a hard place where no matter what happened, people were going to get upset. Some fans, it's okay to be upset about this, and because of the crazy controversial call, I've talked about it on the show before, but it was a controversial call at Final X. I believe should have went to a match 3. But, under the rules, under what exactly happened, it didn't. And now the implications, okay. Right now, I'm not really sure where the lawyers are, where, Cornell's coaches are saying, like, they were going to hire lawyers and review this. I don't really think that this can go to a match 3 at this point. I don't think that it will. As far as, like, what this exact match has on implications, not really anything. It's not, this match and this tournament isn't going to change the fact, like, Team USA is not going to say, like, oh, Yianni's in now that he won this tournament. That's not how it happened. Now, what could happen is maybe Zain's actually injured, and he's, injured too much where Yianni actually does get to wrestle. And now, I think that Zain, he deserves that spot on Team USA. He earned that spot, and these two are going to compete again probably next year for the Olympics, and, for that Olympic spot. So, although Zain has a spot right now, it's there's no crazy implications. And what happened at the rest of the tournament, if you're interested in what happened in the rest of the tournament with a couple of the USA guys, I'm not going to go through the whole results, but just talk a little bit about this, exactly what happened. So Team USA took second place here. They actually lost to Turkey, the home country, hosting this by 10 points. Now, Turkey had more guys entered in the tournament than Team USA, so that's kind of what happened. Now, as far as champions, placers, things like this, it was kind of nuts because, first of all, Yianni won, and he's not on Team USA. Second of all, Alex Dieringer won, and he's also not on Team USA yet. He still has to wrestle Kyle Dake, which, in Kyle Dake news, he won this Spanish Grand Prix, and he's still wrestling Alex Dieringer off in August. Now, in other news, Jaden Cox outscored his opponents 42-0 and won the tournament. And also, Pat Downey, he took fifth. He placed. Saw a lot of controversy here too. It's one of his first world tournaments. It's his first world tournament since making the world team, and a lot of people were giving him crap. David Taylor would have played or would have won it. He would have cruised through this. Blah blah blah. Listen, okay. Let's represent Team USA. Let's get behind Team USA and support them. Pat Downey's on this team now. Whether you like it or not, he's on the team, and he deserves the wrestling community's support. And that's as simple as that. And that's what's going to do it in World Wrestling News this week. Now, before you go anywhere, let's talk about some college wrestling news. So, one of the college wrestling news that I wanted to talk about is Rutgers. Rutgers has a new transfer coming to their school, and this it kind of came out of nowhere. Rutgers is just getting more wrestlers, and it's going to help them out. So who is this? So Sammy Alvarez is the guy who will be wrestling at Rutgers next year. Now, who is he? What's going on with him? Why did he transfer? I'm going to get into that, okay? So, Alvarez is the number 34 overall recruit on Flow Wrestling's Top 100 Wrestling Recruits. Now, if you're interested in learning about who those other recruits are, who the top 100 are, and getting into all those stats, I actually have a whole video series on that, analyzing those top 100 recruits. But Alvarez, number 34 recruit, originally going to NC State. NC State, of course, in North Carolina, in Raleigh. That's where he was going. Now, Alvarez is originally from Montvale, New Jersey. Maybe you see where I'm going to go with this. Why is he going back to Rutgers? Well, he's from New Jersey. Okay, he's from New Jersey, so of course he's going to have some connection there. He was ranked number 3 at 126 pounds in high school. Well, he was also a state finalist, 3-time state finalist from New Jersey. So big Jersey boy, 3-time state finalist, and a state champ in 2019, this past year. He actually beat a Bergen Catholic wrestler, Robert Howard, who's a Penn State commit, and plans on going there. Now, why did he leave NC State? I mean, really, it's a personal preference, most likely. I don't know if it was necessarily any one thing, whether it was the coaches, or maybe just didn't get along with the team. What he says is it just wasn't a right fit for him. And I think what a lot of people forget, a lot of wrestling fans forget, and before they want to, just jump down people's throats, this is BS, he shouldn't be transferring to... Okay, listen. He just started college as a freshman over the summer. He's coming from high school to college. He has no idea what to expect. He doesn't know what he's going to like. He's moving from New Jersey down to North Carolina, which is a pretty darn big move. He doesn't know what he's going to like, what he's not going to like, okay? Whatever it was. He just didn't like NC State. He didn't click there. Could have been a number of things, okay? But now he's moving back to Rutgers, and you just take the guy out of New Jersey, but no, you really can't take the guy out of New Jersey because he's just going to move back. Talking about Alvarez, talking about Nick Suriano, okay? But they're going to have a pretty tough team next year, Rutgers. And, who else is Alvarez going to be wrestling off against? Well, I see him getting into that 125 spot, possibly, against Shane Metzler, who's a junior right now. He's not going to be wrestling, he's not going to beat out Nick Suriano. Of course, Suriano, the returning national champion. But it could make their team just that much better and that much more competitive. Plus, we get some new recruits in and really make Rutgers, a national, a top national title contender, at least top 5 to 10 place winner over the next few years. And, if not next year, I think they're going to do really, really well because of Alvarez, because of Suriano, because of all these guys they have. In other college wrestling news, one thing I want to talk about that I don't think that a lot of people understand. So let's get into talking about Olympic red shirts. And this term is thrown around so often, Olympic red shirt, especially Olympic red shirt, Dayton Fix going to take Olympic red shirt, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't think a lot of people know what an Olympic red shirt is and what it actually does, as far as wrestling, as far as, okay, does this lose a guy a year of eligibility? What if he already took a red shirt year? What's going to happen to him? What about medical red shirts? How does this all fit in? Okay, so red shirts, just in a general sense, you're basically able to take a year off from wrestling and, still compete in open tournaments, just not attached with your school. That's a general red shirt if you have no idea what red shirts are, okay? Now, a medical red shirt is if you're injured, you're wrestling during the season, maybe you get injured halfway through, or maybe you don't even have any matches and you're injured, well, you can apply to the NCAA can grant you another year of eligibility. An Olympic red shirt, I'm going to get into how to qualify for it, what it is, and is it any different from those. So, first of all, the Olympics, the 2020 Olympics are happening next year, of course, 2020, in Tokyo. And wrestling fans cannot be more excited to see what happens. So, the Olympic trials will actually be happening April 4th and 5th next year, which is just a couple weeks after the national tournament, and they'll be happening in State College. And, I'm planning on going there. I really want to go there because I think it'll be fun. So, an Olympic red shirt is a special red shirt in addition to a regular red shirt year. It's actually more similar to a medical red shirt where you have to kind of apply for it and then you're granted that year. And we'll get into some guys who may be eligible to be granted for it, and one guy who actually is already said, I'm taking this Olympic red shirt year. He's already been granted it. It's already going to happen. So, first of all, how do you qualify for this Olympic red shirt? Well, there are 4 different ways to qualify. 4 different ways to qualify for this Olympic red shirt. The first way to qualify is if you're a past national team member, you placed top 3 at the Worlds or Olympics, you were on Team USA before, you're eligible to get that Olympic red shirt year. Now, that's a little bit tougher because, making a senior world team while you're in college doesn't happen that often. You may see like a Kyle Snyder, that happened to him, where he was on a senior world team wrestling still in college. That was one thing that happened to him. Now, the second way, which is a little bit more, second, third, and fourth way, a little bit more common. The second way to qualify is if you were top 8 at the Senior U.S. Open. There's a second way to qualify, which there are a couple guys there. Then, if you were top 3 at the national tournament this past year, you're eligible. Or if you're a previous national champion, and so previous national champion, and you have a top 2 finish at the U23 World Team Trials. So that's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like you have to have both of them. And then the fourth way is if you're a previous cadet, junior, U23 world medalist. So those are the 4 ways to qualify for the Olympic red shirt year. Now, what do guys do during that Olympic red shirt year? Well, there are a couple first of all, they're training. Okay, so they're training to compete in the Olympics because the Olympics, of course, don't happen until the summer. So, why do they take a whole year off? Well, a lot of times what they're doing is actually going to compete in world events. And the other thing they're doing is actually some guys may be qualifying for the Olympic trials that will be happening in April. There are multiple different ways to qualify for that. Mostly it's if you place or if you win a world one of the world events, world tournaments, then you're able to qualify for the Olympic trials. Now, who are some guys who've qualified? Well, one guy who's already confirmed is Jaden Ironman. Ironman out of Missouri. is already confirmed to be an Olympic redshirt for the next year. He will be taking next year off to train. A couple other guys who may take a year off, it's not announced yet whether they will or not. Okay, so first of all, past national team members, Mason Manville and Nick Reenan. Then you have some U.S. Open medalists, Yianni, may or may not take an Olympic redshirt, Dayton Fix, possibly, Ryan Deacon, Gable Stevenson, Zahid Valencia, all potential Olympic redshirts, which, you know, those are some guys that could change the scene of college wrestling next year and, you know, possibly make titles more interesting because, you know, those are all national title contenders. You also have previous cadet or junior U23 world medalist and Spencer Lee, Dayton Fix, which they can qualify in a couple different categories. They're going to get that Olympic redshirt year. Mark Hall, Jacob Warner out of Iowa, Colin Moore, Mikhail Lewis. A couple of these guys, you know, I don't think every single one of these guys is going to take an Olympic redshirt year. And you've seen guys in the past who've competed that have competed on world levels, but actually wrestled the college season. And that doesn't happen a lot of the times. You know, Kyle Snyder is one of the rare guys who did it, and you know, he's winning world titles and national titles. Like, unbelievable. It doesn't happen that often, but that is what an Olympic redshirt year is, and I hope that helped you understand exactly what it is a little bit more, especially since we're going into the Olympic year next year. And if you are a Cornell Wrestling fan, then you're going to love this next topic because we're talking about the Cornell Wrestling lineup for the 2019-2020 season. And there are going to be some interesting guys here based on a couple different things. You know, one is Yianni, of course, if he's going to take an Olympic redshirt year or whether he's going to wrestle, what's going to happen there. We have a couple guys graduate, but a lot of the team is returning. So what's going on with Cornell? So first of all, Cornell placed 7th at Nationals last year behind Missouri. They wrestled a pretty good tournament. You know, of course, Yianni won the tournament. They had a couple placers last year, and I believe they had 5 qualifiers who are returning, and 2 of their guys are actually graduating. So Cornell is looking very tough next season. I've seen a lot of you in the comments, you know, who have been excited to see Cornell's wrestling lineup because you think that it's going to be so good next year. Now, I'll tell you this right now. Cornell has 7 out of the top 100 recruits, which is more than any other school in the entire Division I. 7 out of the top 100 incoming freshmen for the class of 2019, which is wild. It's so exciting. They have 3 in the top 25. So who are these guys? What's going to happen? Now, Cornell is kind of it's a different school because it's Ivy League. You know, a lot of guys take gray shirt years. So as I'm going down this list, you know, some guys may be taking a gray shirt year, not actually wrestling at Cornell next year. They'll be wrestling at Finger Lakes Wrestling Club. So we'll see exactly what happens there. But I'm going to tell you who is at every spot and what to expect. Starting off at 125 pounds. 2 guys here that, you know, could potentially make the lineup. First of all, true freshman in Philip Mumi. Mumi is one of the top 100 incoming freshmen. He's number 78 on the list. He was top 10 guy at 132 pounds in high school from Nebraska. I probably see him gray shirting next year, mostly because you got Vito there. Vito Aruja, who wrestled, you know, last year at Cornell. He's a sophomore this upcoming year. Placed 4th at the national tournament. He knocked off Nick Piccinini, who was the number 2 seed. He lost twice to Seabass at the national tournament, but he's going to be a very tough guy to beat. In 125, you know, it's a weight where it's going to be could be pretty crazy next year, especially if you see certain guys take Olympic redshirt years. Because if Spencer Lee takes that Olympic redshirt year, good chance that, you know, somebody else is stepping up there, and it could be anybody taking that title. So that's going to be exciting to see. EIWA champ, and, you know, I see Vito getting that spot. But at 133 pounds, who do we have? You could see Mumi bumping up there. You could even see him, you know, potentially going 41. I've seen that in a couple places. I'm not really sure where he's weighing in at, but you know, he's one potential there. The other guy who actually wrestled at 33 last year for Cornell is Chaz Tucker. Tucker last year was an EIWA champ. He was the 9th seed going into the national tournament. Didn't have the best tournament, ended up going 1-2. So it kind of hurt Cornell that way. But you could see him, you know, he's a number 9 seed. As long as he has, you know, another solid season, you could see him doing well. I mean, one guy that he beat last year was Luke Pletcher, who's, you know, top guy at 133 pounds. Now, he had a couple losses to RBY, Lezak, Monterey Bridges. So, you know, he's I don't want to say he's all over the place, but he has some solid wins. He has the potential to put some points on the board for Cornell and helping them, you know, place high at nationals. So I think Tucker is going to, you know, make that spot 133 pounds. 141, like I said, one guy's moving. The other guy is Michael Venosa, who if Yianni redshirts as an Olympic redshirt, you could see Venosa stepping in. He was 11-7 last season. Now, as far as Yianni, of course, he's a 2-time national champ as a true sophomore. He's coming into his junior year. He's competing right now on a world level. He just won the Yasar Dogu. So he's wrestling extremely well. He's peaking in his career. Just, you know, I didn't even think that Yianni could get any better than when I first saw him wrestle, but he's getting better every single year, every single day, really. Now, what's interesting is one guy that already has an Olympic redshirt year, was already granted it, is Jaden Ironman, who, coincidentally, is Yianni's only collegiate loss. Yianni is 66-1 overall. He was 29-0 last year when he won the title, and you know, Ironman gave him a pretty tough match at nationals, and you know, one of his toughest really. So if Ironman's out, you could see Yianni really just crushing that bracket and winning at 141 pounds. So I have Yianni on the roster, but you know, if he Olympic redshirts, then Venosa's there at 149. This is kind of where Cornell dropped off a little bit last year, as in they didn't have a lot of they didn't have qualifiers for the national tournament, but this is who they have, and they're going to have, these guys are going to have to step it up a little bit and really help Cornell compete, be competitive next year. First guy at 149 is Hunter Richards, who's a junior. He was 9-5 last season. He lost to Max Thompson, but he did win the Bearcat Open, which is, you know, a good tournament for him to win. So he's a junior. Then you also have incoming freshman, redshirt freshman, well, gray shirt, I guess, in Colton Ujaun. Colton was unranked in high school from Colorado. He went 9-2 at Finger Lakes. Really, I see Richards making this lineup again at 149. Last year, Jonathan Fumas was in here at Furness was in here last year, sorry, he was a senior, but this next year I think Hunter Richards is going to make that spot. Now moving on to 157, two guys, one Freddie Stroker, two Adam Santoro. Santoro wrestled last year, actually it was kind of split. Stroker wrestled last year, I believe he was injured. He had a record of 6-3, Santoro had a record of 17-11, so really these two guys are going to be competitive in the wrestle-off. I give the edge to Stroker just a bit, and so that's why I have him wrestling at 157. At 165, three guys that could potentially make the lineup. Nobody, you know, I think that this is another competitive weight where any one of these guys can make the weight. First of all, you have incoming freshman Andrew Marola, who was 11-6 at Finger Lakes last year in his gray shirt year for Cornell. Well, not for Cornell, for Finger Lakes, but incoming to Cornell. You have Malik Dawkins, who's a senior. He went 6-9 last year. And then you have Andrew Baresa, who's a sophomore, who went 16-11 in his freshman season. So out of these three, mostly because Baresa made the lineup last year, he's wrestling there, I give him the spot. And so that's who I have at 165. Now, I think Cornell really picks it up now that we get into 174 and kind of these upper weights. So first of all, Brandon Womack is a guy who wrestled last year. He wrestled last year at the national tournament, went 2-2, did not place. Although he did place in the past, he is an All-American. He took 8th in the past in 2017. But he is a 3-time national qualifier. Now, his freshman year, he was at Cornell. He didn't wrestle. He didn't have any matches. So this would actually be his 5th year. While I don't know for certain that he was granted it, I've seen that he is able to wrestle next year, so that's why I think Womack, could do really well next year. Was 22-10, and he wrestled well. Now, who else do we have incoming? If Womack maybe isn't granted that, or who the backups are. First of all, you have Julian Ramirez, true freshman, number 10 incoming freshman in the for Wrestling's top 100 wrestlers. He's a gray shirt probably this next year. He's from Blair. He wrestled really well. 3-time state champ from Florida. Beast of the East champion. Ironman, he took 2nd place. Ironman finalist. Wrestled really well. And, you could see him doing well at Cornell in the future. And then the other guy you have is Mason Reineke, who's the number 8 at 174 pounds. Just another guy at that weight. I give Womack the weight at 174 next year. That's who I think is going to make it. As far as 184, 2 guys here. First of all, Chris Foca, incoming freshman. Number 21 incoming freshman. He's number 4 at 182 pounds, and he is a New Jersey state champion. The other guy you have here is Max Dean. Now, Max Dean really stepped it up at the end of last season. He came into the national tournament ranked 5th, but he ended up knocking off the number 1 seed in Miles Martin. It was one of the best matches of the tournament, and he really showed what he's made of. Although he did lose in the final to Drew Foster, he's looking to come back next year and really, look for that title. There are a couple guys in contention for a title there, and I believe that he is one of them. So that's why, as a junior, I have to give Max Dean that spot at 184. At 197, Ben Honas last year wrestled at this weight at 97. He took 8th at Nationals, so there are going to be some big shoes to fill here, but we do have 2 guys. First of all, Jacob Cardenas, who's an incoming freshman. I probably see him gray shirting, so I don't necessarily see him making the lineup next year, especially because of the other guy who is here. He's a number 15 incoming freshman, so something to look forward to in the future. He's a tough guy. 2-time state champion from New Jersey. Also went to the same school as Chris Foca. These guys are teammates. Now, who else is at 197? Well, we have Ben Darmstadt. Darmstadt was actually an All-American in the past. He was injured last year, All-American in 2018. He took 6th place. Now, next year, he could do really well for Cornell, especially considering that 197 is a little bit more open now that Bo Nichols out of there. Of course, you still have Colin Moore. You still have a couple guys who are competing for that title. I think Colin Moore is the guy everybody's going after, but Darmstadt could give him some, something to mess with, especially, depending on what he's been doing since his injury, since his time off. So Darmstadt I have at 197. And 285 at heavyweight, a couple guys who could be making the roster. First of all, you have an incoming freshman in Luis Fernandez, who is number 61 incoming freshman from New Jersey. A lot of New Jersey guys going to Cornell. A lot of New Jersey guys, actually, which is surprising. I don't know. It just seems surprising that they're all going to Cornell. But you also have Seth Yianni, who's 12-7 at Finger Lakes. I don't necessarily see either of those guys making the lineup next year. But the guy that I do see making the lineup is Brendan Furman. Brendan Furman, filling in for Jeremy Sweeney for last year, who graduated. Furman was 8-3 last year. He wrestled on 2 duels, 2 opens. He actually ended up winning the Matttown Open. He beat Isaac Reed in the finals. So Furman, I think, has his spot. And I think that overall Cornell has a very high likelihood of, you know, placing high at the national tournament. And if you're interested in other wrestling lineups, make sure that you check out the other wrestling lineup previews that I've done, because it's interesting to get into all of those stats. And that is the Fanco Wrestling Show. If you are listening still, if you're still at the end of this show and you're still listening, make sure that you just leave a comment below letting me know that, you know, I listened all the way through to the end. I think that's so cool. I find it so exciting that you guys are, you know, so supportive fans, such exciting wrestling fans. And the other thing I want to ask you is make sure you leave some comments and questions below. If you want to know a little bit more about something, you want some of your questions answered on future shows, make sure you leave a comment below. And that's going to do it for this week's Fanco Wrestling Show. There's a lot coming out in the upcoming weeks that you guys, you stuck until the end, have a lot to look forward to, because there's just a lot in the works for the future. That's going to do it for this week's Fanco Wrestling Show. Thanks for watching.